My wife and I met 5 years ago at a concert in our area. I walked up to her and struck up a conversation about the band, and we had a very interesting chat about it. I gave her my number, and she called me a few days later. We got married 2 years into our relationship, and I thought I met the love of my life. She was smart, funny, good-looking, and kind. She was the kind of woman that I imagined being a phenomenal mother, and I couldn't wait to start a life with her. Early on in our relationship, she was vocal about how scared she was of commitment. She told me that she cared about me and wanted to try and have something serious, but she was worried that something would happen and she would end up getting hurt. I know that a lot of what she was worried about stemmed from her parents. They were staunchly against getting a divorce, but if I've ever met a couple that needed one, it would have been them. From a young age, my wife saw them arguing and calling each other names. Her father cheated on her mother regularly with many different women, and her mother had a long-standing affair with a man from their neighborhood. It was a loveless marriage, and my wife was afraid she would end up the same way. On the other hand, I grew up with parents that cared deeply about each other, and I was thankful for that after my wife told me about her upbringing. I think her seeing my parents opened her eyes to what I would be like as a partner. There were times early on in our relationship when I could tell that my wife wanted to back out of everything. Her instinct was to run away whenever she started to have feelings for someone, but I had to step in and stop her from doing that several times. After we were married, we settled into our lives, and she started to feel comfortable and secure with me. She was the only woman for me, and my head didn't turn for other women. For a while in our relationship, she would stay late at work. I assumed she was working on a big project or had a lot on her plate. She was always a very focused and ambitious person, so it made sense. I never suspected she would be cheating on me. I only realized something might have been going on when I saw an Am I the Jerk video on YouTube, where somebody described how they found out their partner was cheating. I went into the video thinking it was just going to be some over-the-top, dramatic story, and by the time I was finished with it realized I might have been dealing with something similar. My wife came home from work late again that same night, and I asked her about what it was she did at work so late. Admittedly, I never really asked her much about it before. She never seemed to want to talk about it either. I understood not wanting to talk about work while you're at home, so I didn't pressure her. She seemed surprised by my sudden interest and ended up spinning the conversation to being about how I never asked about her. She told me it was like she was living with a stranger sometimes because we didn't talk frequently. I knew that was bullshit, and I could tell that she was deflecting and trying to evade my question. She wasn't prepared for me to ask her about what she was doing, so she had to distract me. If she was simply working, she would have just told me the details of what she was doing. She needed to come up with a good lie. I went to bed that night very suspicious about my wife. Of course, I had no solid evidence to confront her about anything. I thought through what I would be able to do in order to find out the truth. I didn't like the idea of snooping through her phone, but I also knew that it would likely give me a lot of information. The only problem with that was that she always had her phone on her person. If there was a moment where it wasn't with her, she would be quick to realize that and catch me snooping. I thought about it a bit more and had an idea. She was paid hourly at her job, so if she was staying late so many nights a week, certainly her paycheck would reflect some overtime. We had a joint bank account where both of our paychecks were deposited, so I looked at all of her previous deposits and compared them to a recent week where she worked at least 10 hours of overtime according to her. There was virtually no difference in the paychecks. The payments that were deposited were reflective of 40 hours a week with taxes, benefits, and Social Security taken out. At that point, I knew that she was lying to me. I had already suspected it, but I had proof of it. I just needed to get proof that she was lying because of an affair. I weighed the options and eventually decided that the best way forward would be to hire a private investigator. One of my close friends had actually hired one in the past, so they were able to connect me with him. I paid him and caught him up on everything that I thought was going on. He then began following my wife to try and catch her in an affair or figure out what was really going on after work. By that point, just the idea of my wife cheating had already put a bitter taste in my mouth. We hadn't been talking much, and I could see that she was eager to get away from me. Because of that, she was spending more time at work. The private investigator had been working for about 3 days when they contacted me for the first time with information. They found a receipt for a restaurant near my wife's place of business in the trash can. It had her signature on it, so they were confident that she was there. On top of that, it looked like she had ordered for 2 people. Through some means that I'm not entirely sure are ethical or legal, the PI was able to look at the security footage from the restaurant. As clear as day, there was footage of my wife sitting across a dinner table from a man and holding his hand. I couldn't make out who it was in the video, unfortunately. Holding his hand wasn't exactly cheating, but with everything else going on, I think it was safe to assume that there was something between them. After getting the footage, the PI did a stakeout on my wife's work and followed her to the house of the man she was with. There he was able to get the name of the man we suspected she was having an affair with. It wouldn't have been legal for him to take any pictures or videos since they were within his house, but he told me he witnessed them together. That was all I needed. I didn't feel like I needed to see the evidence myself if I had a professional confirming my suspicions. I would be divorcing my wife if she was cheating. The PI gave me the other guy's name, and I immediately recognized it. He was the head of the local homeowners association. I wasn't very involved with it, but my wife was. She attended meetings and helped plan some events for the organization. There, she met a lot of other people in town and made a lot of friendships too. She was always excited to go to the meetings, and I never thought twice about it. The man was married, Mormon, and had 5 children. I was certain an affair wouldn't look good for him. I compiled all of the information the PI gave me, and I contacted a divorce attorney about moving forward. I didn't think I was going to do anything to get back at them, but as I was getting some water from the fridge, I saw a homeowners association events calendar sitting there. It had all the meeting dates, event dates, and fundraiser dates written in. There was a fundraiser a few days away. I kept quiet about what I knew and worked with my attorney on the divorce in private while I waited for the event. The day finally came, and my wife was shocked to see that I wanted to go with her. It was a silent auction to raise the funds to build a gazebo in a park near the neighborhood. I sat at a table with my wife while dinner was served to everyone. Before the auction began, the Homeowners Association president, who was the man my wife was sleeping with, stood up to toast all of the donors and volunteers. He personally thanked my wife for her tireless effort in planning the event. He made a joke about how she would call him all the time with questions and ideas for it. I interrupted and asked, "Is that all she called you for?" He was quiet and looked between my wife and me, very confused. I stood up and clarified my question, accusing both of them of sleeping together. Everyone in the room was scandalized by what I was saying. I told them that I knew the truth, that they were caught in his home sleeping together. They both fervently denied it, but I was firm in what I said. His wife stood up and yanked him away to question him, and I left the room while everyone from the neighborhood began gossiping about them. I heard some of them talking about how they thought they were always too friendly for married people. My wife followed me home and tried to lie some more about it, telling me I was out of line for accusing her. I explained how I knew about it, and she eventually gave in. All I asked her was why she did it. She had the audacity to blame her parents. She said that she had never seen a normal marriage and infidelity was in her blood. She started rambling about some cheating gene that scientists had recently discovered. It seemed like a load of shit to me. It was a poor excuse. I told her I was already filing for divorce, and there wasn't a thing she could do to stop it. Now we are officially over. She's moved out of the house, and I am thinking of selling and moving into a smaller place in the city. The man she cheated with also divorced and no longer lives in the neighborhood. OP, it seems like your wife took advantage of her past and tried to push her trauma onto you, which is never okay. Being affected by your parents' bad relationship is understandable. I can see how that played into her fear of commitment before you were married, but blaming them for cheating is just a weak excuse. I don't believe there is such a thing as a cheater gene, and I don't know what she was talking about. Cheating isn't a biological process, it's entirely social. It sounds like she was trying to come up with any reasoning she could so you would understand where she was coming from. It's good that you called both of them out in front of the people at the fundraiser. It seems like the man she slept with was trying to paint himself as a nice man, a pillar of the community. But his image was all lies. I'm glad his wife left him too. It seems like you really cared for your wife, so I hope you're able to move on from this and avoid letting her affair keep you from finding happiness in the future. Now let's move on to our next story for today. I, 28 male, met my ex, 30 female, when I started a new job and we started dating shortly after. Unfortunately, I found out that she was married and planning a family with another man not long after. Not that long ago, I got out of a really bad relationship and decided that it would be best for me to start over somewhere else. I had been wanting to leave my job for some time, and the relationship ending was the perfect opportunity for me to move and to do that. I ended up finding a job in Seattle, a place that I had always been interested in living. When I started, everybody was so friendly. I had always been the type of person who kept their work life and personal life separate, but it was easy to mix them in the new office. For the first time in my life, it truly felt like I had a work family. Everyone in the office loved Halloween, so they threw an annual party every year. I was excited to go. It was my favorite holiday, and I thought it was a great way to get in with my other coworkers. When I was there, I met perhaps the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. At first, I thought she must have been another coworker's date or something because I hadn't seen her around the office. She noticed me as well and decided to strike up a conversation. I found out that she actually worked in the office and had been out of the country on business and returned just a few days before the party. The Halloween party surprisingly got kind of rowdy. There were a lot of people who indulged a little too much in the open bar and said and did some weird things. The woman that I met took the opportunity to kiss me. It escalated from there, and we ended up hooking up in the bathroom. I had never done anything like that, so I didn't really know what that would mean for us moving forward. I thought it might be awkward at first, and I didn't want anything to be uncomfortable between us. The party ended, and everyone went home. The following Monday, everybody came in and discussed how crazy the party was. I wasn't sure if the woman was going to be super excited to see me, so I didn't look for her. Around lunchtime, she actually found me, and we talked. She ended up telling me that she thought we had some kind of connection and didn't regret what we did. She then told me that the office had a strict no dating policy, so we couldn't tell anybody about us. I didn't know anybody else in the office that well yet, so I didn't have anyone that I immediately wanted to run to tell about the new girl I was seeing. It was easy for me to keep that a secret from them. She and I dated in secret for a few months. We would sneak small kisses in the break room. We would hold hands under tables, and we would exchange longing glances at each other. I kind of liked sneaking around. She would come back to my apartment some nights after work, and we would hook up before she would go back to her apartment. I asked her why she never brought me to her place, and she told me that she had a roommate who would always nag her about having guests over. She also always made up excuses not to sleep over at my place, like not having clothes for work or having early meetings. I never suspected that the reason we were keeping our relationship a secret was because she was actually married. Here's the thing about that. She wore a wedding ring, and I didn't think anything about it. I didn't even notice because she wore a lot of rings. Honestly, before I knew she was married, I didn't even know what finger a wedding ring went on. So, maybe it was my own stupidity that kept it going for so long. One day, I was in the office and chatting with one of my coworkers when they casually mentioned going to dinner with my girlfriend and her husband. I felt my face go hot as soon as they said that. I clarified, not thinking that they had the right information, but they confirmed to me that she was in fact married. I couldn't believe it right away. I was dumbfounded by the information. I mean, how could I not have known she was married? She lied to me about our relationship. I needed to see for myself, so just out of curiosity, I texted her and asked her if she wanted to go out that night. She told me that she had some family over and couldn't. I couldn't help but think that was just another lie. I struck up a conversation with the same coworker later that day, and I asked them about where they were going for dinner. They started telling me all about the restaurant they planned on visiting. I had asked my girlfriend about social media early on in our relationship, and she told me that she didn't have any. I didn't have any reason not to believe that was the case, so I didn't have her on anything. After finding out that she might have been married, I searched her online and I found all the evidence I needed. She had been married for about 3 years, and from everything I saw online, it looked like they were very happy together. I was the other man in the relationship, and I didn't even know it. My blood was boiling at the thought of her lying to me so blatantly. I knew that I needed to confront her about it, and her husband needed to know about what she did. I tried to think of a way to do so calmly, but my impulsiveness got the better of me, and I decided to crash their dinner. I found the restaurant that my coworker told me they would be at, and I let myself in. I saw all 4 of them sitting at a table together, laughing and sharing a bottle of wine. The coworker that I had been speaking to earlier saw me and waved me over. They happily introduced me to their partner, as well as the husband of my girlfriend. Her face fell when she saw me. I could tell she knew exactly what was about to happen. I shook the husband's hand and wrinkled my eyebrows, pretending like it was the first time I heard she was married. I told her that she never told me she had a husband, otherwise I would have never been with her. I knew going in that she had a husband, but I played the victim as best as I could so she would be made out as this big villain. I told her that what she was doing was wrong, and everybody in the room looked very confused. I explained everything to them, and her husband confessed that he knew there was something going on. He stormed out of the restaurant, and she followed behind him. When they were gone, I explained everything in more detail to my coworker, especially about how she lied to me, and told me that there was a strict no-dating policy in the office. Apparently, that was actually true. Dating within the office was prohibited to prevent drama between the employees. There was a clause in our contracts that possible termination could be in order should that agreement be breached. The next time I was in the office, I went right to the HR department and disclosed the relationship to them. I explained everything, and I told them that it was likely there would be drama between my girlfriend and me given the fact that she was a liar and a cheater. Part of me thought that I would be fired and she would be allowed to keep her job because of seniority reasons. There was no reason to fire both of us, so if one person had to be fired, it would have been me. I was looking for other jobs and positions after I told them and waited for their decision. Come to find out, the coworker that was at the restaurant with her went to HR and explained everything that happened. They were clearly on my side in the events of everything and told HR that if anybody should stay, it should be me. I got a call from HR later that day telling me that the situation was handled and I was given a formal warning about dating in the office, but my girlfriend was terminated. It felt nice to know that they took my side and everything. It was good to know that they saw the right side and didn't just align with her even though she was the cheater. My coworker told me a few months later that my ex-girlfriend was getting divorced from her husband and actively looking for a job. Termination never looks good on your record, so I knew she would have been having a difficult time. I didn't know what else was going on with her, and I really didn't care. I actually reached out to her ex-husband to express how sorry I was. I genuinely didn't know anything about him, and as soon as I found out, I tried to correct the issue. He wasn't receptive to talking to me at first, which was understandable because he was probably in a lot of pain. After a few weeks, he reached out to me and told me that it was a difficult thing to hear, but he was glad that I told him what happened. They were actually planning on starting a family, so he was happy it ended before there were children involved. OP, it's unbelievable to hear about how easily somebody can lie to another person. The ease with which your ex-girlfriend was able to carry on living this lie is frankly disturbing. I feel very sorry for her ex-husband. If they were planning on starting a family, it seems like they must have been in love and excited about the future. I can't imagine having that all taken out from under you. You did the right thing by going to the restaurant and outing her for the liar that she was when you found out. Everybody deserves to know that the person they're with isn't who they were making themselves out to be. I'm glad the husband has spoken to you after the fact and updated you on his life. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.